الآن علي اتفضل to present the module. شكرا جزيلا.
Yes, of course, sir. Thank you for this overview. All right, now, greetings, our dear participants, and welcome to the 6th and final module of the capacity building of conducting medical research. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ali Hilal, a 5th stage medical student at Babylon University, College of Medicine, and I'll be escorting you throughout this considerably important module to ensure everything runs smoothly. And our subject for today is considered as one of the core titles in writing and medical research, which is how to write a literature review. And for tonight's learning objectives, we'll be able to learn the steps towards achieving a publishable literature review. And we'll be able to learn about rubrics as a guide in writing. And what is a rubric, and how would we be able to construct one? And of course, this session will include some short notes on proposal writing, report writing, reflective writing, and analytical writing. And for now, the star of this show will be, it will be presented by the lovely Dr. Sahar Abdul Rasul. Dr. Sahar is a senior lecturer of anatomy at the University of Western Cape, Department of Medical Bioscience. She's a member of the Anatomical Society of Southern Africa, a member of the active creation and administration of many undergraduates, postgraduates, and clinically oriented anatomy courses. And she is the coordinator of the Anatomy BCHD2 course. For now, moving to some important ground rules. Because your time is valuable, our dear participants, and it is a very important asset to us and to your endeavors, we kindly ask you to follow the upcoming rules. Any question that you may have during the session, you may write it in the chat box and will be discussed. It all will be discussed at the time of the discussion. 15 minutes would be very sufficient. I'll be specifically indicated Dr. Sahar in that matter. And if you want to further clarify your question, you may raise your hand, unmute yourself, and then share with us your idea. And for now, I'd like to address an important matter, if I may, which is the certificate. Dearest participants, in order to gain the certificate, we're requesting some of your information. And by that, we kindly insist that and ask you to fill in the form that I'll be posting about now in the chat box, and which I'll be posting it a couple of times as well for everyone who hasn't seen it by then. And please do not forget to fill in the feedback form that I'll be sending in the chat box at the end of the session. If I may say, our eternal thanks and gratitude for Dr. Hilal Safar and Dr. Shakir Mahmoud for making this beautiful course and informative course possible in the first place. And I am really saddened that it will be our finale for this course. And yet, if I may introduce Dr. Sahar, without any further ado, please, Dr. Sahar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for this lovely introduction. And dear audience, I thank you for your presence today. I would like to start by sharing my screen, if I may. The presenter view. Okay, I don't know whether this is okay with you, the size of the screen.
It is very okay.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction. I would like to state a few points that is needed for every researcher and every doctor in order for him or her to write paper, a scientific paper that is publishable in a scientific journal. Unfortunately, there is a lot of work that goes unpublished because of several things that gets neglected. So as Dr. Ali has introduced the summary or the learning objectives of this lecture, so I'm not going to go through that. We're going to talk about the steps towards achieving a publishable work. So defining literature review, what is literature review and what is a paper? The literature review is usually part of the paper, is the introductory part of the paper. And it is a critical recap of or synopsis of the research that is done relevant to a particular topic. So extensive reference to related research in a chosen field, that is what a literature review is. And then there is connection that are made and a conclusion that is drawn from what you are going to list as your literature review or your introduction. So the introduction has to be very specific to the topic that you are writing, but there is a point there. You're not requested to just list what the others has put into their papers. What you are doing in your paper or in your introduction is that you are going to critically analyze what is written or mentioned there, and you are going to come with your own conclusions regarding the topic. Together with your, of course, the research plan and the material and method, and then your results, and then the discussion of your results. And we can talk about that as we go. So literature review is a critical recap of the research that is relevant to a specific topic, and it can be the introductory part of a publishable paper, and it also can be a paper by itself. You can write a review article in a particular topic. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Sahar, but could you use the slideshow or the slide share, please, to make the slides bigger, that it will be seen for everyone? You have this option above on the left, use slideshow. If you could
use
please.
Slideshow, yes, okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm sorry for that. My technical apology. So the literature review is a critical recap of the research that is done in the field. You are expected to analyze what's written, and you draw your own conclusion, and that's what gets written in your introduction. So the reader is not expecting you to reiterate or to repeat what the others have said or done. And also, if it can be a review by itself, or it can be a paper, a part of a research paper, and it can be the introductory part to your thesis, whether a mini thesis. Many of you will write mini thesis when they finish a degree. So this is something very required to any researcher, any doctor, anybody who is in the medical and scientific field, and you need to know how to master writing a literature review. So if we move to the next slide, the literature review, as I said, it can be a standalone paper, and it can provide a theoretical framework for research study. So why are we writing a literature review? So it gives the reader a critical overview of the existing knowledge. As I said, you don't need to repeat what the others have said. And how the researchers has approached a topic, it will give you an idea on how to research a particular topic. So you will be able to access the methodologies that the others have used, and you can decide on what methodology that is suitable for you. Whether you're doing statistic, whether you're doing research in a lab. So you decide on the methods that you are going to accept and use, and also you can discuss with your colleagues on or other collaborators about what they can add to your research, or what kind of joint research that can be done. Because nowadays nobody does, usually single authors for research papers is quite rare. People collaborate to get a more impressive work, to get it in order to get it published more easier. So how to find or decide on a topic for your research? The first thing that when you read, you need to find the missing gaps in the knowledge. So what is the part that is not done? For example, there isn't enough molecular research done on breast cancer in a particular country like South Africa. So that is always very good when you do molecular research on breast cancer, and you write this is that this is done in African women, it gets a lot of interest simply because there is a scarcity in the number of papers that is published on molecular oncology in South Africa. So to find the gaps in the knowledge and to find points that has not been approached by other researchers, because pointing out the novelty in your research make it also publishable. So the aim of each academic literature review is to stand on the shoulder of the giants, because that is how you can see clearer. You are taking these papers, all that written literature, and then you're analyzing it to come up with your own conclusion. So how to start writing a literature review? You decide first on a topic, what topic you are going to research, and then you conduct a literature search in that particular topic. Of course, in the good old days, we used to go to the university library and we get the hard copies of different scientific journals, and that's how we browse through them and we highlight certain parts that we really want to include in our writing. We photocopy, and that's not what is happening nowadays. Nowadays, we have different databases where you can get digital copies of the research journals that is relevant to a particular field. So the first thing that you do, you need to use a search engine. And the search engine is, there are three main search engines for you to approach. I think Scopus and this and Medline are very popular in Iraq. We use PubMed. It's one of the search engines that is done. It's been there for quite some time now, 2 decades or more, and it is usually it is a part of the National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health. It's an American search engine, and you can see that the PubMed is one of the search engines that you do. And here you can see that it says search PubMed. So we usually use keywords for searching, and the keywords, that is something that you define. So 3 search engines that is very much used. One of them is PubMed, and I'll move to the other search engines. That's the second search engine, Science Direct, one of the common search engines. And also you can see it also uses keywords. So here I wrote breast cancer molecular markers to search for, because that is one of the, that's my interest in research, but you can literally punch any words, type any words that you can use as keywords, and then you will get all the papers that is relevant to a particular research. So again, PubMed is one of them, very famous. One of you might say, but why we are using 2? For very unknown reason. They both come with different papers when you type the same keyword. So there are different search engines. One of them is PubMed. The second one is Science Direct. The third one that is very famous is Google Scholar. And Google Scholar is, it gives something extra to the other search engines. You can see whether an article, how many times the article has been cited. So here, for example, that's the prognostic molecular markers in breast cancer. And you can assume that I also listed the same keywords. And you can see that this paper is cited by 315. Another one here is cited by 172. So that means this paper, you need to read it if you are going to write a paper on the molecular markers in breast cancer. Of course, we have to bear in mind that the new published papers, if a paper is published in 2021, it won't have a lot of citation because it's literally quite new, but it is, this general rule applies. When you see a paper that is highly cited, you should try to get that paper if you are going to write in a particular topic. So it shows the referencing count of a paper. sometimes you need to redefine your topic, and what does that mean? So suppose now we're searching for a topic. If you write breast cancer, this is very non-specific. The search engine will come with 430,000 paper. It's not easy, or it's not possible to read 430,000 paper. So you try to decrease the number of papers, or make your search more specific. So, for example, when I put breast cancer and molecular markers, and is written in capital words called Boiling operators, and this will reduce the addition of more words, will reduce the number of papers that you can trace. You can see it went down to 57,000, and then if you write a triple negative breast cancer and molecular markers, the search will go down, and so until you reach a number that you can scan through, or you can browse. So you can be very sure of that the number of the papers gets less and less as the more specific words or keywords that you add. There is another thing that try to read the classic studies that is there in a particular field. It's always, for example, if you are doing an RNA extraction and you are using the chloroform ethanol method, try to find that classic paper that originally published that method. Sometimes you are trying, I'm going to give an example which is a little bit more biology rather than medicine. Suppose now you're writing about the sexual behavior of penguins in South Africa. And then you type these words, you put your keywords, and then it doesn't return with papers. It would say no papers are there, or no references are listed. That doesn't mean that you cannot write about that topic. You can widen the search. So you search for birds and like the behavior of birds, and then the sexual behavior of birds, and then you will get some papers, and then you can still write a paper. So it's not always going down or trying to reduce the narrowing the search. Sometimes we try to widen the search. Then we find the selected article. I mean, if you find 5,000 or 4,000, you're not going to read the 5,000 or 4,000. So you browse through them and you find the ones that is specific, or you think that is these are very relevant to your topic. And then we try to download the PDF of these papers. Some papers are free online and you can download the PDF very easily. And these search engines tells you when you find within the search that the PDF is free and it's downloadable, and you can usually import these references into a referencing software. There are 10 famous referencing software. The one that I use is called EndNote. Of course, we buy it, and there is a discount for the student. The other one is RefWork, that was used by the university. They all basically work the same. You can see that I've got a snapshot of the EndNote. So you can see these are the papers that you have. It will list the journal, and then it will show you, if you click on these papers, all of them, you can drag them from the internet, or you can upload them manually one by one. These papers, usually you can check the abstract. The abstract will be there on the search engine. So if you click on a particular reference, it will show you the abstract, but not the whole paper. So the whole paper you can sometimes, if it is free, you can download as a PDF and you can attach it. So it can be attached to these files. So it's really like a library where you can, like a physical library where you can put your books on a shelf, except that this is done digitally. Once you get the PDF, you can put it or attach it to the library. The other way to get a PDF that is expensive is to write to the author, the first author. So if you see when you read any paper, they put an asterisk and then they say this is the corresponding author. One of the authors will be the corresponding author. So you can write to those authors, you can email them asking for a particular PDF for a paper, and they usually respond within a very short time, sending you the PDF. So, and then you can get the PDFs for the work that you need to have. So step 4, you have to read through these papers. Now you got all these papers, whether digitally, whether you have printed them, and you have to read your selected sources. Start by reading the abstracts to find the ones that is most relevant. And you can read it in a way that is very relevant to your research. So it is a very focused way of reading. And the way to do that is to identify themes, databases, common methods of research, gap in the knowledge that's shared by these papers. So it is a very, very biphasic process. You need first to prepare a summary of your useful resources. And the best way to do that is to use Excel, or you can use ordinary white papers. You write the paper and then you summarize the finding of the paper. So you need to identify themes and sub-themes later on. And in addition, you need to find the connection between this. So what does that mean? Let me show you. So this is, it's an Excel file, usually, not a Word file, but for the sake of the presentation, I copied it into the presentation. So we prepare an Excel file. Suppose you are writing about COVID-19. Many people wrote about COVID-19 in this last 2 years. So the way to write, suppose I'm writing about the symptoms of COVID-19. So I'll list it as, I will have my own way of thinking of how am I going to group these downloaded papers that I have, or my own classification. So if I classify the symptoms according to the symptoms according to the systems, so I'll put respiratory, cardiac, neurological, and GIT, and then upper respiratory and lower respiratory, since it's a respiratory disease. Then for the heart and the blood vessels, brain, spinal cord, and then I will try to retrieve the paper. So for example, this paper that I put on the site, one of the downloadable ones, clinical characteristic of COVID-19 patients with digestive symptoms in Hubei, China, a descriptive cross-sectional multi-center study. So I get that paper, and that should go into the GIT. I'll put the year of the publication, and then the paper title. I write the paper title. I write the author here in that section, the journal, and then I summarize the paper. The summary is very important. So you summarize the paper, and I'm sure you all have dealt with Excel by now. You are all very technically alert, and you know that these cells are active in Excel. You can move them. You can regroup them, you can move them, you can copy and paste. It's Excel is very active software. So you put a summary of the research. So I wrote here, the author has studied 107 male and 97 females using RT-PCR. They found this and this. So you summarize the paper and you count on the abstract. Sometimes you can only browse the abstract and then later try to get the paper from the author. This is very, very important. This table allows you to group the papers into themes. You can find a common methodology, and you can find the gap in the knowledge, what those researchers didn't do or did do or didn't do. So it is very, very useful. And you have to go through that reading process before you start writing. You cannot write without you reading enough papers for the topic that you are going to select for your thesis or your paper. So you do that, and sometimes, for example, you can also use this information later for writing another paper. So if you, for example, did a summary and you saw that all those researchers had researched the symptoms using RT-PCR, then you can write, you can check like how standardized their PCR, and then you can write a paper on RT-PCR and the detection of coronavirus. So you can also use that theme and these summaries for multiple papers. It shouldn't only be for one paper. So that's the way how you group your information together. And you need that before starting your own writing of a paper. And once you do that, you will see that this is actually, it's half the work is done for the literature review. So you develop your paragraphs, and this is, I want to stop here and talk a lot about that. How do you develop your paragraphs in an intro? Advice number one, don't imitate the others. لا تحاول تقلد الآخرين. It's your paper and it's your ideas. It's what you have developed and what you have found out through going through all these papers. Your writing should be specific to the topic. You don't deviate from the topic. And you should decide on a controlling idea that is going to create the topic sentence. So what are we writing about? What is the main topic? And what we are going to do is to explain that controlling idea without deviation. So your writing should be very specific to that particular topic. When you start by sketching your paragraphs. So you can see here, that's the way how you sketch your paragraphs, and you can move them in the picture. You can move them from one side to the other. So you start, for example, if you are, I'll give an example on a paper that I got from one colleague of yours. I won't mention the name of the colleague, and I won't mention the paper. So he's writing about e-learning. So the way I see the introduction to be written is that you write about the teaching, and it's about e-learning in medical education. So the way to write about that is to have a paragraph, the first paragraph on how education used to happen before the COVID-19. And then it is about e-learning during the pandemic. Sorry, I didn't mention that. So the way to write it is how education used to happen before the COVID-19. How did education progressed throughout the years? And then what happened after the COVID-19? What is the shift that happened in the type of education? So how did we shift from, in another word, from face-to-face interaction and student-teacher contact to being solely dependent on internet and on e-learning? And of course, you can write about the pros and cons of each of the two ways that we used to tackle education. So this is something very specific, and you can of course bring your own references, and you can come with your own ideas, your own insights. So that is what a paper is about. You're not, and I'm going to repeat that, you're not expected to repeat what the others has done. So this and this did that and that, he came with that and that. Yes, it is there, but you have to come with your own conclusion. You have to write it in a way that you drive your own conclusion. Okay, so the two important elements in a paragraph. You are writing a paragraph for an introduction. There are two parts of the paragraph: the descriptive part, that's the reporting element, and then the interpretive part and the critical element. And that's where you come into the picture. So you ask and answer the questions, you analyze and interpret the information. For example, you can say that the detection of positive cases of COVID-19 has done through PCR. However, The cycle number has not been standardized in different countries. The primers used are different across countries. So that second part is your interpretation of the information. That's what you found out. So all those researchers, they wrote that their detection method was PCR. But then you look into these papers and you see that those researchers didn't write the cycle number, or they wrote, they used different cycle number, or they use different primers. So that is your interpretive part. That's what you are adding. In another way, what you're saying, I found this and that. This is, so that is how we do the paper. This is one of the papers that I published on coronavirus, and it is now, it was listed by many researchers, and the reason behind that is that this paper was written 11 years ago, before it became a pandemic, and that's why many researchers used it as a baseline for what they are writing. So when you write a paragraph, this is a paragraph here. And I will read you the paragraph. The paragraph usually starts with, how do you write a paragraph? That's another important thing. You just don't copy and paste from other papers and you think this is a paragraph or it makes sense. So the paragraphs in English differ from the paragraphs in Arabic. There is an opening sentence, and the opening sentence is the domineering sentence. And I think in a previous lecture, I gave an example to make the meaning clear, and you have to understand that. Comparing Arabic and English, and it's not a criticism, it's a comparison. In Arabic, if we say واحدة من المعلقات for امرؤ القيس وقد أفتدي والطير في وكناتها بمنجرد قيد الأوابد هيكلي. والبيت الثاني مكر مفر مقبل مدبر معا كجلمود صخر حطه السيف من علي. هذا البيتين if you translate it to English and you give it to somebody who is English speaker, he will think that the second line refers to the person who is riding the horse, to the knight, not to the horse. Why? Because the opening sentence, you're saying وقد أفتدي والطير في الشاعر يقول وقد أفتدي والطير في وكناتها. That means he's describing himself. So once he described himself, he should continue with describing himself. So that is how the paragraph in English is. The paragraph in English, and I'll read you that paragraph that I've written here. So I'm sorry, I'm just removing a few things. So it says 5 human coronaviruses have been identified to date, 4 of which are known to continuously circulate in the human population. And then these 5 coronaviruses are explained in the paragraph. So that is the opening sentence in the paragraph. When somebody reads that sentence, he knows that in that paragraph, I am going to talk about these 5 coronaviruses. And the body of the text should explain these 5 types. And then the last sentence should be conclude and wrap the paragraph to the one next to it, to the following one. So that is how you write a paragraph. The paragraph always have an opening sentence, and the opening sentence, you can write any opening sentence, but the person who is reading that opening sentence will understand that when you are going to talk, you are going to talk about that opening sentence. This is not there in Arabic. In Arabic, Arabic language is a descriptive language. There are many ideas that gets dished in one paragraph. And I'm sure you agree with me. So that is not the way that the English people write. In English, when you write one paragraph, one idea, and you explain that idea and you continue and wrap. And of course, that will need a practice. Those who are writing papers will have to read several papers to be able to understand what I'm saying. Okay. That is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. The other thing is the art of paraphrasing. And paraphrasing is rewriting a specific passage through someone else using your own words. So when I showed you the Excel file, I said you have to summarize the paper. When you summarize the paper, you don't copy and paste. Please refrain from copying and pasting other people's sentences. That's not how you write a paper. You have to summarize what you've read with your own words, because there are systems that detect plagiarism. And then when the paper gets sent for publication, they check plagiarism, and there is a very low expected percentage of similarity that is allowed in every paper. Otherwise, the paper will be rejected. So when you write a paper, you have to use your own words. So a rewriting of a specific passage from someone else using your own words, that's what is meant by paraphrasing. Without changing the information or usually removing any information or omitting any information or changing the original meaning. So how to achieve a successful paraphrasing? You read the paper a few times before, so that you become familiar with the contents. What is the sample size? What did they do? What did they come up with? What are the methodology that is used? You can write short notes on the side, and then you use your memory to rewrite that paragraph. So in another word, you use your memory to rewrite the abstract in your own words. And once you are preparing that Excel file, try to write the notes in a different order. Of course, using a different order, and then you check your writing against the original. If you still find the writing similar to the original, you have to do other changes. For example, Baghdad was built by Al-Mansur. Al-Mansur built Baghdad. It's all sentence that means the same, but you change the order of the subject, the adjectives, the subject, the objects. So that is the way how you paraphrase, so that your paragraph does not loses the similarity to the original paragraph. So you rephrase. Sometimes you cannot rephrase, or you want to use that quote that is written by a certain researcher, and then you have to use a quotation mark. So you can use a quotation mark once or twice. You cannot use it more than that. So when you refer to someone in your writing, you can use quotation mark, and you can list the reference. That means that this is not your writing. You're taking it from another text. So always start at a different point from the original. Use synonyms. You can use different synonyms, words different words that have similar meanings to the original word that is used by the author. And you can break long sentences. I don't like long sentences, and most of the people who write, they don't like long sentences. So you break the long sentences into smaller sentences. Try to do that. And it's nice to use linkers when you talk about a topic, like moreover, furthermore, in addition, an increasing body of research suggests that. So there are linkers. Don't just state the facts one after the other. The paragraph will be a bit boring. How to avoid plagiarism? It's the practice of taking someone else's work or idea. You keep track of your sources, make a list of the ideas and related references, quote and paraphrase. And so, for example, here I'm using "Yes, we can" for Obama. Of course, if I ask my students, they won't know that it is for Obama. And use plagiarism software. So the plagiarism software usually detect how many words have been taken from the original text. Okay, now how do you draft your story? You structure your literature review. There are 3 ways. You start very broad. That's very useful. And you go more specific as you go down in your research. You can structure your literature review as 3 paragraphs. And these 3 paragraphs has one common topic. Like they use of PCR in detecting coronavirus symptoms. So you talk about respiratory in one of the circle, cardiovascular and GIT symptoms detection using PCR. Using the methodology, the same methodology. This is how, I don't think the example is very good, but that is like you use one common topic and then you talk about 3 topics that are related with each other. So like a common methodology for detection of a particular disease. And you can use something that are this way. It's like a jigsaw. So you have 4 topics that can link to each other and 4 area, and it has equal weighing in a topic, or and then you can link them to one particular topic. So maybe talking about the symptoms of coronavirus, this is a better example. And here you can talk about PCR in 3 different, the use of PCR in 3 different countries. So the PCR will be common, and we use the findings in of PCR detection of corona in 3 different countries. I think that's a better example for the 3 circle. So this is the way of writing. These paragraphs should should be interrelated or interconnected in an introduction. The final hint, you also need to read, if you are writing to a particular journal, you need to read about the formatting of the journal. Each journal has a way of formatting, and this can be tackled, like they ask you to list down the references in a particular style, and this can be done with all these new softwares like EndNote and Reference Manager, so you can use that particular style that the journal is requesting when you list your references. Some like they will give you guidelines also on the length of your introduction, material and method, results and discussion. So you have to read the guidelines of the journal before submitting to the journal. You have to abide by these guidelines. And then you can write your topic and submit it for publication. As I said, I didn't mention a lot about the methodology. The methodology, you can decide on it by reading through these papers. And also, if you're not doing a statistical analysis, it's not worthy to talk to different universities and different researchers in different universities to see what are the capabilities, what can you do, what kind of research that they are doing before you start doing your own research and getting your results. The discussion session will usually entitle discussing your results, discussing your obstacles, and comparing your results to the results that are mentioned or listed by other researchers. So if you're doing a parallel research, usually it's easy to compare and align your research with the others. If your research is a bit original, you will find writing the discussion is a bit difficult because there won't be a lot of results to compare to, but that doesn't mean that you cannot write original research. You can mention that this is the first time that this has been done. So this is how we write literature review. Sometimes, why did I put the rubric here? The rubric is used to guide the writing. It's not always it's one of the methods that is used to mark big group of assignments, but it also helps you to guide the person who is going to write about the topic on how to write about the topic by listing your expectation from his write-up. So when I give I give a mini thesis to my students, I always provide a rubric. And in that rubric, I show them what is expected to go into the introduction, the material and method, the results and the discussion, and how do I judge them. What is considered as good performance, good writing, what is considered as average, and what's considered as below the average of the writing. So it's a grid that is made up of 4 parts: the task description, a scale of level of achievement, and the dimension of the assignment. So you break down the skills, the knowledge, the involvement of the assignment, and describe what is considered as constitute a good achievement, bad achievement, average achievement. I just want to see, yeah. So this is how you can write. This is a rubric that is designed to mark an assignment. So the effort. That's 4, 3, 2, 1. And this can be associated with marks. So 4, let's say, would be 100%, and 1 would be less. And the effort, she produced a lot of resources. For example, she's writing an introduction, and she had listed 40 references as compared to 20 references listed by another student. Fully prepared, completed the agreed task. So minimal preparation, superficial knowledge of the resources, little or no evidence of preparation, and no efforts shown. So that is how you grade your assignment. And the contribution, outstanding, good quality, few revisions or additions are necessary, and poor quality work, substantive error. There is a lot of errors, and it needs a lot of revision and addition. And there are not much contribution has done to the work. That would be poor quality. This is something that is done, and you can change these criteria. Usually the rubric is designed that way. So the level of achievement can be either numbers or associated with mark. The criteria here can be changed. For example, for a paper, I would write introduction, material and method, results, and discussion in the criteria. And in the introduction, I would say he has tackled 4. He has brought about many references. All the aspects of the topic has been tackled. Here, average, he had to write about such and such. Minimal addition is needed. And then the poor type, we move to the poor type of the performance. And you can spell your expectation, in another word, of the assignment or of the paper work or of the research article in a rubric. And then the student can follow on that. And then he can also, like, for example, for the references, you say for listing 100 referencing or average number, you mentioned the number of references that you want him to use, and then you give less, then he knows that he should browse. He cannot write a paper based on 1 or 2 references. So it helps him or guide the person in the writing of a topic. Some proposal writings are more difficult than the others.
Dear Doctor,
yes.
Dr. Sahar, if you'd like us to stop right now so we can see up on the chat box and answer some of the participants' questions, if you may.
That would be great, yes.
All right. Thank you so much for this lovely and outstanding presentation.
Thank you.
Now moving to the discussion. If anyone have any question regarding the presentation that Dr. Sahar has just presented, you may write your questions in the chat box, or if you want to speak it out, you may raise your hand, unmute yourself, and speak. And now we have Dr. Bassem Al-Samurai has already risen his hand. You may unmute yourself, doctor, and the floor is yours. You may go ahead, Dr. Bassem. Sorry, Dr. Bassem. Can you hear me? All right.
I think he is muted.
Dr. Bassem, if you're trying to answer, you have to unmute yourself first. All right. Until Dr. Bassem solves his problem, if anyone has any question, as I just mentioned, you may write in the chat box or raise your hand.
أسمع من دكتور شاكر أي تعليق على الكلام الرائع اللي أستاذة سحر قدمت به دكتور شاكر.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sahar. And as always, you flied and you are following touching elegantly many domains and concepts in the process of how to write literature. Also, you reiterate many issues greatly that we have raised last modules. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Sahar, we have a question, please.
Yes.
It's from Dr. Hassan Abdul Amir. He says, what's the difference between systematic review and literature review?
Well, systematic review and literature review doesn't really differ a lot. Your review is if you write a systematic review, you write a review by itself, not part of a research program, or you can use it for a thesis, and you can write it and publish it as a review of all, a chronological review of all the research that's been done towards a particular field, in a particular field.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sahar. We have another question from Dr. Bilan Mikhail about choosing the title. Is it a must for the topic to be not conducted at anywhere else? Some researches are country-based and results may be different from one to the other.
No, it's not necessary at all to have an original article, if that is the question. Because that's what usually, if the research is not done somewhere else, is considered as original articles. The original article is easier to be accepted because it attracts a bit more attention for its originality, but you can always write what the others has done, and you state your difference, what you have found different to the others. And I'm sure you have browsed several papers, and not every article is an original article. Sometimes there is a point of originality, like, for example, you do research that's very similar to the others, but you are doing it in a different country. For example, if somebody does molecular markers for the early detection of breast cancer in America, that wouldn't be very original. But if I do it in Kenya, that would be an original article. in the African continent, because it hasn't been done on their women. So it depends on which country you are from. There are many ways of achieving originality. Not necessarily that your research methodology or the topic should be different than the others. You might do it in a different sample for a different group, different sample. Other questions?
All right, thank you, Dr. Sahar. We have Dr. Mustafa Ismail raising his hand. Doctor, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Sahar, for your great presentation. I really like it, and I appreciate the structure of the presentation also. I have 2 points. The first one is about step the abstract and the PDF. You said that we should download, read the abstract. Is it more acceptable like to read the abstract to roll out what we want to download? Then,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You can. It's easier to browse through the abstracts because if you have one of these reference manager or EndNote, it's within seconds you can drag all the you can insert keywords and drag all the relevant references, all relevant abstract references into your library. So you can read through the abstracts and then decide on which from the abstract which one suits you, and then you either write to the author and get it, or you buy it, or even you might search it in the library, in the university library. Usually the universities libraries buy a few digital journals, so they have contribution. They pay for contribution in different journals.
Okay, so for the second part is about the databases. Like each database has its own characteristic by search. Like for example, there is subheading, there is mesh words, there are other tabs how to search a specific topic. What do you like suggest for us to learn about each database search in it? Like
what database? The database is not, you can use any database and stick to it. For example, we use PubMed. We don't use ScienceDirect very often. There is not really a database that is more superior. It's just that this Google Scholar shows you, it points out to you which papers are gaining more attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so like
that is also not very, like it is necessary to read these papers that's been listed by too many authors, because it will have something that is peculiar. For example, as I told you, this paper that I published on Corona, it was listed by several people. Why? Because it was early. It happened 10 years ago. So by that time, people didn't know about Corona. So I think the researchers compare the symptoms to what used to be, because it used to be a very simple disease. It used to involve only the respiratory system, didn't have multi-system involvement, and that's why it gets referenced.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, but it's not necessary. You can decide on the papers that serve your purpose. Google Scholar, the extra in it, it shows you how many times this paper got listed by the others. There is no search engine that is better than the other.
So just the keyword, and between them is the uppercase, and that's enough.
Yeah, yeah. You can put the there are 3 operators. You can read about that, but the common one that we use is the and in capital letters. And the more keywords that you add, you limit your search. But don't limit it too much, because you might get up with you end up with 1 or 2 papers. So you will know when you stop adding keywords.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, Doctor. Well, we have another question from Dr. Nivar Burhan. Thanks for your great efforts, but I do have a question about paraphrasing. Is it totally okay to paraphrase? And isn't it regarded as taking someone's ideas?
No, paraphrasing is you are going to reference the person that you are taking the ideas. So with each paragraph that you are writing, you are going to put a reference. So that is what is happening at the end of the paper. But the paraphrasing is not copying and pasting. So and as I said, you have to use your own interpretation of the work. So, for example, you come with your own conclusion. It's not okay, and I think that is your question. It's not okay to borrow the guy's same ideas, even if you paraphrase it.
All right, dear doctor.
Okay.
We have another question.
Is the answer clear?
Oh,
so
right.
Paraphrasing applies to the writing. You cannot copy and paste, but you still have to come with your own interpretation. It's not okay to get people's idea, the same idea, or their same conclusion or their critical analysis of their work. So you don't borrow other people's ideas. That's the point.
All right, dear doctor. Shall we move to the other question?
Yes.
All right. From Dr. Faraz Hattar. Can we consider systematic reviews as original articles? And what is the strength of systematic reviews?
Systematic reviews are very important. Some people say why we do it, because that person who he will summarize too many papers, 300 publication maybe or more, and he will draw his own conclusion about these papers. So for example, he will talk about a method of detection, but then he said this wasn't standardized or this wasn't applied in a similar way in different countries. So he takes, as I said, we are not just copying and pasting other people's work. We have to analyze what we have read. And that is what you are putting in your paper. The originality applies usually to research work, unless somebody writes a review that is original. Nobody has done it before. Usually, I don't see that tag of original paper on systematic review. But systematic review are very useful. You have to read several systematic review before approaching a topic, because it's a summary for a big amount of work on a topic. And of course, most of the researchers in between their research, the real research, the research papers, they write systematic review about a topic.
Thank you, Dr. Sahar. Doctora, what do you think of a break for 10 minutes? We exceed the first hour.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right then.
So,
with your permission, Dr. Shakir, we'll take our break for now.
Yes.
All right then.
So
and we'll be back at about.
Are we expected to do the assignment? Or the activity in the second part, or can I continue with my lectures for a bit?
You can't continue with your lecture.
Dr. Sahar, you can continue with your activity after the break and do whatever you want to like. This is a very interactive, very useful session, and I can see the number of attendees increasing with time in spite of the announcement of this activity was only 24 hours before its occurrence. And this is a great achievement for you as a high quality speaker, as well as for the network, as it's gaining more repetition among other doctors, junior and postgraduate and senior doctors. I think we have to take 10 minutes and do whatever you want to do after the 10 minutes break. Now, Ali, we have to be back.
Yes, sir. Now we're at 8:12. We should be back at 8:22.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Take care all.